Put a few of the animals here just to give you an idea what they look like next to the ark. Mr. and Mrs. Noah, and the top comes off completely, and the ramp comes down on that side. This little thing here, you push it in, it holds the ramp up, pull it out, and the ramp is able to fall open. Clever design, nothing really difficult. Mostly outside cuts. I think a beginner with a little bit of, well, just a little bit of experience could easily make this project. I've made this before and plan on making it again. So most of the parts of the ark itself are all simple. Nothing complicated about them at all. There's two sides to the ark. Those are 1/2 inch thick. There are two sides for the top. Those are also 1/2 inch thick. The bottom is 1/2 inch. There's the two ramps. Those are 1/2 inch. And there's the bottom for the top deck, I guess you would call it. I don't know that. So anyway, all those parts, and I'll explain this later. All those parts are 1/2 inch, and then the roof takes 2/4 inch pieces. So I'm going to need a bunch of 1/2 inch cherry. For projects like this, I like to make the entire project out of the same board when I can. That way the wood matches. And I know I'm going to need the whole board. I know I'm going to need it 1/2 inch thick. This is 4/4, so I don't need it obviously this thick. What I can do though, that's a 1 inch thick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this board, I'm going to find a convenient place to split it. So here's my thinking. I'm going to take this, cross cut it 32 inches to make it a little bit more manageable. And then I will, both edges are rough, I will run it through the table saw to smooth up one edge. Then I will rip it to the 3.5 inch width that I need, and then I'll rip the other side to the 3.5 inches. Okay, I'm done resawing. Now it's time to do the parts layout. As I said before, with these, they're easy patterns. So you just take the masonite pattern, lay it out on the side of the wood here, and go ahead and mark away. The plans call for 1 inch holes, 3 on each side of the top here, and 4 on each side for the sides of the hull. And so I'm going to use a Forstner bit to drill those. You can use whatever you got, but I think a Forstner is a perfect solution for this. Make sure you use a backer board, otherwise you'll get tear out on the back, and sometimes it's very difficult to clean up. And that's what the sides of the hull look like. I'll continue to do the rest of those. The plans call for a 1/8 inch hole to be drilled through each of the animals for their eyes. Didn't show that at the drill press. There's really not much to see, obviously, on that. I'm going to start cutting the animals. Remember, I'm making 2 sets, so obviously the ark would have had 2 of each animal, according to the biblical account, but since we're making 2 of them, there's going to be 4 of each animal. Anyway, this is a pretty good stack of animals to cut, and it's going to keep me busy for a while, which is fine because I love cutting on the scroll saw, and being here all day would be fine with me. This would be a good project for a beginner on the scroll saw because there's no difficult cuts at all. I've got a number 9 Pegas Modified Geometry blade in the saw. There's the first animal, pig. That was cutting a little bit on the slow side. My experience tells me that the blade is dull, and so number 1's going to be slow. Number 2, it might start burning. In fact, there was just a tiny little bit of burning on that piece of cherry. So I'm going to replace the blade. You can immediately feel the difference. It's time for some assembly. All the parts are cut, all the animals are cut. I just need to finish them. But as I mentioned when I was cutting, this is cherry, and cherry has a tendency to burn, so you can see what it does right there on those edges. Those edges are going to show, so I don't want them looking like that. So I'm going to go to the disc sander and just run them past a couple times to clean those up. The other thing these will need, I drilled the portholes in the side there, but if you'll notice down in the corner there and up here, there's bases for, there's markings for holes. The one on the bottom is going to be for an axle peg that will hold the ramp that goes up and down on that end. The top one, and that's going to be on both sides. The top one here is for the little peg that holds the ramp in the up position. You'll see what that means in a few minutes when I get to that point. But in the meantime, I've got to drill those. All right, so the first part we're going to be able to attach here will be the bottom, and we want to center it. This ruler has a center scale on it. We're going to want to mark that there, and the bottom of this, the center is, got a little glue on here, so that goes there. And the other thing you can do is you can put this one side piece on. Okay, give the glue a little while to dry. So what I usually do, what I found works, is to line this up, because I want to put the second side on now. I'll take a piece of dowel rod that's a 1/4 inch hole, so I need obviously something smaller than 1/4, so I got some 3/16. So I'll use that to align the two sides, and I found that works pretty well. So we're good there. Now, best thing to do with this will be to put a couple clamps on it. I'll do that in a minute, and let that dry for a little while. Then I'll come back in and put in the ramp, and then we'll go on to the rest of to the upper deck. We're getting into the final steps here. You want to make sure that when you install this little, I don't know what you call it, but the stop, when you push it in, you can see it here, that the inside of that, the top of the axle peg is inside the boat hull, and that will keep the ramp from going down. You pull it out and the ramp is able to move, and you're able to do that because of the countersink we did earlier. You want to put a little bit of glue on the head, the bottom of the head of this axle peg, and maybe a little bit around around the outside of the hole and put the ramp in place on that side, flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. You want to make sure the holes on the side of that ramp are big enough that the ramp can move easily, which it does. So that's good. The last step here is going to be to put together the top part of this, and you want to make sure that it fits in between here. This one's not quite. It's going to need a little bit of, just a little bit of sanding. Let me do that. All right, that'll work now. You want that to be able to fit in there like that, and it does. So these two sides will go in here. What you want is you want a gap there. About half, this is a half-inch thick piece, you want a 1/4 inch gap, and what will happen is this will go 1/4 of an inch down into the boat, and it will keep it from moving side to side. So I've made this project before. I've got these little 1/4 inch spacers here, and I will use those to glue the two sides like this. I'll measure them up. Right now I'm just eyeballing them, but I'll measure them up like that, and then I will put on the two roof pieces. So that's pretty much the last glue up step. I'm going to do a little bit of sanding here, a little bit of measuring, and then I'll put those together. It's time for finishing. This is one of those few items that I still use a brush. This is polyurethane, mid-wax polyurethane warm satin. You can tell by the size of the can, or the lack of size of the can maybe, that I don't use a lot of it anymore. I used to buy bigger sizes, but I guess that part of what's changed is what the type of items that I make. The finish brings out the beauty of the grain of the wood, and it obviously gives it a coating so it'll last. Taken care of, this toy will last for years and years. This kind of thing can be actually passed down from one generation to another if the family cares to do so. The ark is done. That's what it looks like. That's it for this project. Please hit the like button if you liked the project. Subscribe if you'd like to see more like it. And if you have any comments, I would really appreciate them.